Alright folks, here we are once again. Morphy's Games to Chess. The Owen Morphy match continues with the fourth match game held in August of 1858. Alright, Owen once again with white. Morphy given odds of pawn and move. And it's very similar to the last game where they play a French. And here you got Owen advancing, the advanced variation, pawn to e5. Alright, Morphy striking at d4, the Achilles heel for white. Alright, this is what usually the theme is. So, c5 striking at d4, Owen protects it with a pawn. Morphy strikes at it again with the knight. Owen defends with his knight. Here comes Morphy's queen. See, they're all piling up on d4, right? Now here you got the bishop to d3. And it appears now that the bishop blocks out the queen's protection of d4. So can you just trade like this, folks? Look, let's put the engine on. Look, can you trade like this? All right, takes, right? Pawn takes. Oh, look at this. You could win the d-pawn, right, folks? Wrong, because the check comes in. And you lose. Look at this. Okay, you take your piece first over here with check, right? And then you capture the queen. And it's game over. See that? So d4 is still protected even though the bishop blocks the queen's influence. See that? Little tactics there. So a little sneaky move. Okay. So anyway, what does Morphy do here? He plays g6. Okay, and you got castles. And now, Morphy with bishop to d7. All right, so now, folks, Owen plays this pawn up, right? Let's just play a dinky move over here, h3, that's totally irrelevant, right? Can we take? Oh, look at this. The engine goes in for it. Can we take, right? All right, now, the idea, if you continue to trade again, now you got your bishop over here, right? There's no check on b5, right? So can you do it, folks? No, because as Shredder shows you, you can take the check on g6. The bishop sacrifices itself this time to be able to win the queen, right? And white's winning now, right? He gave up bishop for queen. Crazy, right? So it's still defended, folks. d4 is still defended. You got to watch these tactics, folks. You got to watch the tactics. All right, so let's pull back the h3. That's just to show you. After Morphy's bishop to d7, it's still, d4 is still well protected because a bishop takes on g6, okay? All right, so anyway, Owen plays the pawn up, looking, I guess, to expand and hit the queen off of b6, but Morphy's having none of it. He blocks it, he stops it dead in its tracks. And here comes Owen developing the knight on a3 now. Okay, so Morphy advances, pushes the knight back to c2. Now this wouldn't damage the pawns because obviously the rook recaptures, right? So if a4 wasn't played, this might be a good option to bust up those pawns of white on the queen side. You'd have two isolated pawns like this, you see? That might be worth doing. Okay? But also notice in the French defense, this is the good bishop. You see this, folks? This bishop's the good bishop because these pawns, they're on the light squares. He can move pretty good. He's got some options. See? Here's the bad bishop, folks. He's blocked in by his own. His scope is limited. This is the drawback of the French formation, the pawn formation. You know, it kind of limits this guy. He's like kind of, he's bad. He's a tough piece to develop. All right, so anyway, a couple of little, positional pointers there. All right, so now after the bishop goes back, we got Morphy developing the knight here. And in leaps the knight to b5. That's why he came to a3. And he's looking, folks, to come down on d6. So Morphy right away swings his knight to f7, see? To stop this guy. Morphy can't allow this guy to post in here like this and give a check to the king, I mean, that would be dangerous. Of course, see, Shredder chopped that guy off right away. Heck, you win the pawn, right? You win the pawn like this. Okay, so anyway, all right, he'd stop him from castling that way, but he might be able to go queenside. Maybe he doesn't even need to. I don't know. But it's a whole other game. This might be a little foolish because now if black's gonna open castle on the queen side, if he's gonna go long over here, right? He's gonna do that. He might not want to take this b pawn. That just opens up the avenue of attack. See, now white's threatening to bring the king rook over to b1. So you gotta move. If you just do anything dumb, like, I don't know, just make a silly move. Here he goes. Your queen's dead. See that? He's trapped. She's trapped. Right? So you gotta pull it back. Now you got the open b file. You know, now the king might be dangerous to castle either way. You know what I mean? So anyway, all right, it's a whole other game. Who knows? Maybe black can survive that. Who knows? Right? But anyway, this is why after knight to b5, that's why Morphy plays knight to f7 to stop this guy from coming in. All right, not so fast, tough guy, right? So now, okay, what do we got coming up? Now we got, okay, Owen pushing the pawns, okay? Starting to chisel away at the pawn chain. All right, so Morphy takes, bishop takes, and here we got Morphy developing his king bishop, getting ready to castle, okay? And here you see Shredder pushing, saying, push right now. Go ahead, go for it. You know, this pawn, this c3 pawn, folks, for white, is weak. That's a backward pawn. There's no other pawns on either side. None on the d file. He passed already. He passed them. That's why he's backward. And a backward pawn can be weak. No b pawn to protect him. See this? So he's backward. No other pawns to protect him. If he can't advance, that means pieces have to protect him. And that means that those pieces have to be babysitting that c3 pawn. And they can't go on the offense. They got to babysit, you know? So it could cause problems. And it is very weak because it's on this open C file for black. See, black could put a rook on C8 and beam down, maybe get a piece posted on C4. C4, a nice outpost for the black pieces if he could get one there. Right now it looks a little hard to even get a knight or the light square bishop in there. But these are the little pointers that you try to look for. That's how you form your plan, folks, your positional plans. All right, but this would be the move. Get rid of trade your backward pawn. Okay, now what would happen after this, right, is now this is the backward pawn. The D pawn is now white's backward pawn. So he'd be looking, and he might be trying to even just win. Now black's E6 pawn is an isolated pawn all by himself, right? So that could be weak, you know. This is the back and forth struggle in chess, you know. If black could maybe get his knight to, you know, sit in here nice on an outpost, maybe up here. Wait a minute. Yeah, there you go. He goes right for b4, right? He wants to come in here. All right, folks. See, that's Shredder knows the deal. Look, he's looking to swing the knight into d5. See, that's why knight to b4. Prevent that d pawn from advancing. Now, one thing to note is that bishop e3 sets up the tactics, folks. So no matter how good your positional plan is, right, your planning can all fall apart just with the tactics. Say you'd want to, the general rule is to control the square in front of that backward pawn. That's an outpost, folks. The knight would like to take control of it. You would want to put all your power, right, all you can on that square. You maybe move the bishop there. Eventually, you end up moving your rook here. They all control it, all blocking that pawn from advancing by controlling the square in front of it. In this case, d5. But obviously, if you noticed, after white's move, bishop e6, you do something like this. You're not paying attention to the tactics. The discovered attack on the black queen by the bishop over there on e3. That's why white moved it. So no matter how good your plans are, you got to always watch those tactics, folks. All right, so as you can see, here you got Shredder with the move, stop that pawn from advancing. You fill the gap. Now you would want to, after this move, you'd want to play bishop c6, bring the rook over to d8, right? But white doesn't give him time to back up the knight. Because now, by taking, you're filling the hole, folks. See this? The pawn takes back, and the d4 pawn now is not as vulnerable on an open file, see? So now a rook to d8 would be useless because your own d5 pawn is blocking, okay, the attack on the d4 pawn. So, and also now with the e pawn moving over, now this guy becomes a pass pawn. He's a protected pass pawn. Very, very vital in an endgame. Should have the advantage now. You can see evaluation down here, folks. If you look down here, +2. Okay? Let me see. Is he up a pawn? You got 5, 2, 6. Well, he is up a pawn. But it's very crucial that protected pass pawn in endgame. All white has to do is trade down the pieces. And he's got a good shot of winning this game with no problem with that protected pass pawn. Because the black king would have to babysit that guy. And the white king could walk around the board and gobble up the pawns. Okay? That's basic. I mean, you still got to play the game. You don't know what's going to happen now from this point, but definitely white would have an advantage at that stage right there after this. Okay? So anyway, all right. So a lot could happen. Don't get me wrong. A lot could happen. But just a few notes. That's why, you know, what white's trying to do. They recommend right here now, let's see, on move 14, folks, move 14, okay? The old masters, they write it, folks. Pawn to c4 was stronger. What does Owen play? He plays rook to king 1, like this, see? He's going in for the tactics, folks. Sure enough, Morphy jumps in and castles, right? And look at this. Look at that. They give this a question mark. Because I guess the plan of c4 is better than this may be fancier, folks, right? After takes, now you get the pawn fork, right? Okay, Morphy moves the bishop back. And there, Owen gets his piece back. He didn't win a pawn. He didn't win a pawn, folks. He just this was just a different line to go in. Morphy taking back with the rook over here. He takes back with the rook. Okay, and now let's see. What do we got after that? Let's move what? Move 17, right? Okay, we got the bishop coming out. Okay, bishop to g5. All right, so here you got rook. Let's see. Do I got this right? Bishop, yeah. Okay, Morphy gets the other bishop off the back rank. Let's turn the engine off right now. This is not what Owen does. All right, so what Owen does is, okay, he moves the rook behind his knight, threatening a discovered attack on the black queen. For instance, do something foolish. I don't know. Let's just move the king over here. Useless move, right? Well, then you got something like this coming in. Let's see if Shredder does it. Let's see if there you go. There you go. Knight. You see this? He's attacking the rook over here, right? Even better, let me do this so he doesn't just lose a rook, but you bring the king up, let's say, right? Okay. The knight's threatening to win the exchange, right? And black doesn't want to take here because then he loses the queen, see? That knight moves with a discovered attack. Rook on b1, attacking down the b file, right? Queen moves, okay? Let's say the queen moves and black wins the exchange, right? Now, they actually say, if you notice, look, grab the rook, okay, and then you grab the knight. And that way you'd get a rook and knight for the queen. Losing, folks, but not as bad. It's just, you know, what could have been. Think of it. The queen, this is just total math, right? You got to always consider the position on the board and what the pieces are doing. But a queen is worth 8 pawns, right? Queen is, let me think for a second. No, queen is worth 9 pawns, my mistake. Queen is worth 9 pawns, 3 minor pieces, right? 9 pawns. A rook's worth 5 and a knight's worth 3. So that only equals 8. So you see, so it's like technically, mathematically, you're down by 1 pawn, right? If you moved your queen and he wins the exchange, knight for rook, well, now it's like you're down 2 pawns. See, folks, actually, look at this. Okay, you take this guy, I guess, huh? Is that what they're going to do? And when you go to take back, what happens now? You get the check. All right, the attack is... White's starting to really grab the initiative now. So, all right, so totally different. Look, why not protect? If you leave the knight unprotected, you come protect h7, you lose this guy, right? So you got to protect him. All right, he gets this pawn. Everything's falling apart, folks. All right, so you see, White's in control of this one. All right, so anyway, so I'm just doing some of the math, the basic math. See that? It'd be better to go in taking the rook and taking the knight than just losing the exchange outright like this, see? All right, anyway, there you go, right? I mean, heck, it's losing. Either way, black, you're busted. You're losing. Okay, so after this, Morphy sees what's coming. He brings the queen back, okay? And there you go. They trade the bishops. Now, he can't take here, folks, because he's still got the rook on it, right? All right, the jokes. The jokes, folks. All right, here you go. He takes back with the rook. All right, Shredder would have liked to trade here, but again, I got to turn that off not to confuse. Because here Owen did a different move. Okay, he does the queen up. The queen up here, attacking the D pawn, right? Threatening queen takes pawn, check. All right, here you go. Morphy solves it this way. He attacks the rook on B1. Now the black queen defends D5. Okay, what ends up happening here? If you do put on the engine, this was one of those crossroads. The engine likes to take. Now, if you take with the queen, you lose the pawn, right? With check. Okay, now what happens after this? Anything? Nah, nothing important. There you go. That's no good. No good. White's winning, right? So you'd have to take with the knight to keep this protected. Okay, he moves this over here, and all right. Whole different game at this point, right? A little bit right. The knight wants to come in, a nice outpost for the white knight. I don't know. What are you going to do? It's tough. I don't know. White's got an edge, but is it really that much, folks? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe the Grandmaster with the technique, they can pull it out. I don't know. It's a +2. Okay? He is up a pawn. But you still got to fight it out. So anyway, at this point, this is what happens. After bishop to F5, Owen didn't trade rooks over here. His rook is being attacked by Morphy's threatening to win the exchange. So he moves it back here. He wants to push the C pawn. That's on the open C file, backward C3 pawn, right, folks? We talked about it. So he's going to bring the rook over to C1 to back it up, to push it, right? So now, look at this. Now Morphy swings his bishop over here, trying to control C4, I guess, right? All right, here's the engine saying, trade those rooks on E7. Owen doesn't do it. Owen ends up playing the knight back here. Okay, he plays the knight. Okay. I don't know, folks. Here you go. Knight goes there. Now, he puts the bishop on E2, threatening to take the knight and bust up the king side pawns. Right? Double up those F pawns. And here you got Owen playing C4 now. Okay? And what the old masters right, they say right here, White's last 2 moves have spoilt his game. Okay? Now, Morphy does his plan. He takes the knight. But Owen now has the queen on the 3rd rank. After this pawn on C3 moves up, see? The pawns aren't busted. He ends up taking back with the queen. Okay. Oh, and before he does that, matter of fact, he takes on E7 now. He takes on E7 now. Okay, so now Morphy does take back with the queen. And I guess he was hoping maybe this, right? What happens there, folks? You could see it from a mile away, right? The queen check, folks. The queen check. After this, you pick up the rook on C1. with check, no less. Adding insult to injury. See this? I mean, then it's over. Forget about it. It's all over. So there you go. Right? Easy game. You come back here, you give a check, right? If he goes back here, forget it. The rook's gonna come to E1 and come in on the. Let's just show. Look. All right, he goes back, right? There you go. Look, folks. Just like I said, rook to E1. He's gonna bring the big guns into the attack. You're threatening rook to E1, mate. Right? All right. The queen comes back to protect. Look at this. You could just go right in for the pawn. This guy comes in over here. Like that even matters, right? All right. You take. It's all over, folks. All right, make it simple. You take, right? What does it matter here? It's all over. do we need to play anymore? Look, I'll just do this. Look, we're gonna bring the queen down. All right, he knows better. He knows better. Chicken. We're gonna give a check on E1 and force the trade of queens. All right, from there, you're up a rook, right? We don't have to waste time with that. You're up a rook, okay? But it's all hypothetical anyway. Look, so what happened was he traded, Morphy took back, and he takes back with, not like this, of course, right? He takes back, now that C-pawn moved off of C3, see? After this move, now he's able to take with the queen along the third rank, see? Okay, fine enough. He takes with the queen, and that's move 26, right? So we'll pick it up from there. Move 26, queen takes rook. All right, now we got, let's see here. Queen takes bishop. Now don't forget, folks, you can't come over here and take because the queens could go back and forth, right? You don't want to miss those. So all right, he takes back on C4, right? He takes back on C4. And you got the D4 pawn hanging, right? So at this point, Owen moves the queen to C3. And look at this move. Not queen, not rook here, piling up on D4, but Morphy chooses rook to E8, not D8, E8. Why? Because if he threatens, if he takes here, already, he takes with check. What's really going on? Let's see. After he's threatening mate in a way, folks. Look, if let's just throw in a useless move to see the threat. Right now, if the knight goes there, let's say you take, right? Okay, yeah, Shredder would take with check. Okay, but let's say he takes the knight. Now he loses to the back rank. See, takes. There, it's all over. See that? So there's sort of a back rank weakness going on here. So D4 is not, it's not really defended well. But after the rook to E8, Owen takes with check anyway. Takes the pawn. The king comes up here, right? And now Owen moves his knight, like Shredder says, to C2, protecting D4. All right, and now Morphy, right? The guy's relentless. Now the queen comes up to G5, attacking the rook, right? Attacking the rook on C1. Okay, so where do you think he moves the rook? To back up the pawn, folks. Now that D pawn, right? It's an isolated pawn, but it's passed. He could. The whole idea is, can Owen push that pawn down and create some, some dynamics with it? Start pushing it up the board to try to queen it. Okay, so he backs it up. When your opponents back up that pawn with their rook, and there's no no enemy pawns to stop your opponent's pawn, get ready. He's going to start pushing it. So what does Morphy do to halt that pawn? Well, he pins it. He pins it with his rook. Okay, Morphy pinning that pawn, right? If the pawn moves up now, he loses his queen, obvious, right? As obvious as can be, see? Shredder knows the deal. All right, so anyway, at this point, I don't even know. What does Shredder recommend? Just curious. F3, huh? Hits that guy. All right, he moves him over. He keeps that pin on that D pawn. All right, so let's see what ends up happening here. I think it goes something like this. Let's see. We had move 30, right? Move 30. Got rook to e4. Right? And okay, the queen slips to c3. Now it's not pinned. Now we can push that pawn up to d5, right? Look at this. Shredder knows the deal. Morphy following suit. Queen to f6. Now the pawn is pinned again, folks. Again, he loses the queen, right? If he pushes it. Okay? So now, what does Owen do? He repositions the queen to get that pin. The pawn unpinned. Queen to d2. Now Morphy moves his queen over to d6. All right? And no, he doesn't push. Shredder's saying to push, right? Instead, he plays this move. I don't quite get it. He plays the g-pawn. I mean, I don't know. I don't really know why, folks. Maybe he's the back rank mate. He's watching against that. Okay, but anyway, at this stage, now this gives Morphy, I don't know, he plays this move, right? h5. Okay? Here comes f3 now, hitting that rook out of there. Oh, I guess so the g3 pawn maybe was to control the, the squares along the fourth rank. And now when f3 is played, the rook's got nowhere to go. He's got to back off. But, I mean, the pawn's not even pinned. Like, the queen's not on c4 anymore. All right, but anyway, all right, so here you go. You got rook to e7. Okay? And now I think the pawn does the pawn get pushed yet? Let's see. The rook goes back. And no, not yet. The queen comes up. The queen to g5. Okay. And now Morphy's got the knight. Look at the tactics here, folks. Look at this move. The knight swings to e5, threatening a knight fork of king and queen. Knight takes f3. Can you imagine falling to that? Now, obviously, he can't take this because the rook takes, right? And you can't take with the pawn simply because you lose your rook. You lose your rook, and then, hey, look at this. You lose your knight, too. How about that? With check. All right, game over. All right, so that's the obvious thing. So he's taking advantage of the pin on the d-pawn. Okay, and what happens? All right, Shredder's saying this, right? Look at this, folks. Let me turn off the engine. Here comes Owen, protecting it with his king, right? Stopping the potential fork and also protecting his pawn. But guess what, folks? Morphy takes it anyway. Can you believe this guy? He takes it anyway. Knight takes pawn, exclamation point. All right, Owen goes in, he takes the knight, and here comes the queen fork. Queen to c6 check. You see the knight on c2 is undefended, folks. But get this. After the pawn block, Morphy continues with the rook check on f7. Because notice the queen is attacking that rook. It's hanging, right? The white, like if he takes down here, he loses to this, right? Okay. So get this. He throws in the check first. And also, if you look at this now, too, this is interesting. This allows Morphy to take the knight with check. Such a crucial move right here. Not only does it protect his material, but it's also setting up his opponent for the next move, right? It's like, if he goes here, or he can't go here because of the pawn, right? He's got to get off this. So he's got three choices, right? Now, if he goes here, or even here, right? Then he takes with check. Okay, he takes with check. So the only other question really is, what if he moves to the dark square over here, right? Now, what happens? The basic premise is the white king is in the center, and after you take this knight, okay, he's in the center, and he's subject to, checks, and black has the initiative. Black has the play. Okay, even let's take it against Shredder. I think let's see, what does he do here? All right, if he gives the check, right? After that, the black king on h7 is protected. Okay, there's no, there's no threats of check to the black king. Meanwhile, look at the white king. He's exposed. Okay, after stuff like this, look, you could give, all right, they say go for the material. Take the pawn. You'd have two passed pawns, right? Potential connected passed pawns, and then you just got to deal with white's passed D pawn. But look at this. You give the check, right? And what are you setting up, folks? The queen is now protecting e7, so a rook would pin the queen, right? Like, okay, here, Shredder goes there, right? Now, just to show the vulnerability of the white king in the center like this, I think this eventually leads to something, look. Because if he blocks here, right, you go in with the check, he blocks with the rook. If he moves, folks, if he moves, right, let's say he's only square, right? If he moves, let's say if he moves up, right? Let's see how, I mean, everything I looked at, it was pretty dangerous. You get the check, right? Now, he's got nowhere to go, folks. This is a forced move, right? He's actually in a mating net thanks to this pawn on h5. So if he goes there, well, now you got the rook check. He moves, right? And he could take this way. He could trade here, and then he could take this one, and you're up a rook. You got all the power, all that you need. I mean, oh, they got that passed D pawn. Maybe that could be a little risky. So let's say, all right, you just take your queen, right? What do you care? It's all over, folks, right? You got all the power on the board now, and it's going to be curtains. So anyway, you know, this is like an example. The king is stuck in the center, and you know, black has all the initiative, all the fun. Okay. I mean, again, you give the check, he blocks. Let's say you do. All right, the queen blocks over here. Right. All right, you take the. I don't know. Let's see. You take. Do you want to take that pawn? Just looking at the checks. I guess you could take it, right? But that was one example. That was just one example. He goes back there. Does it go anywhere after that? I guess not, right? You go here, you take the pawn. Already pushes, right? What if he continues to push? Let's see what he does after this. Oh, he goes there, he blocks. He checks this way. Right. Now, if he goes here, you could take the pawn with check, see? All right. So the D pawn looks dangerous, right, folks? But look at the action that black has. Okay, he goes here, he takes, and then he's going to win the D pawn down here, right? See how it could work, folks? I mean, those are some lines. You know, White's king has no shelter, and he's got to deal with the queen, the attacking black rook and queen. So, black has the initiative. That's all you need to whip up the advantage. You win a pawn or two, even you just win a pawn or two, and there you go. You got the end game in the bag. But anyway, so let's go back. That was just because I questioned. I said, why can't he go here? You know, well, that's why. So where does Owen go? He brings the king here, right? So now that allows Morphy to take the knight with check. He takes the knight with check. Okay? The rook blocks. All right, and the engine's saying this. All right, well, he blocked with the rook. Okay, here comes the queen with check, right? Now, what happens, folks? This is where it gets pretty now. All the little patterns that will show here. Watch this. What if he goes back, right? Well, goodbye. You give the check, right? He comes up, only square. There you go. There's pattern number one, right? Beautiful mating pattern, and no. Okay, nowhere to go for the black king. He's a dead duck. All right, so where does he go? He goes up. He goes up, only square, to prolong the game for now. Okay, so after that, you got the queen coming down, getting ready to give a check over here, right? And look at this. Owen pushing that pawn. Get that pawn up the board, baby. We need another queen. All right, is he going to have time? Here comes the check. All right, Owen blocks it with the rook. Let's look at the alternative, the only other move, right? Coming up, right? Here we go. Put the engine on. Let's battle it out. I'll show you what happens. You chase the opponent's queen out of there. Chase him out. Queen gives the check. King tucks himself away. Now what's threatened, folks? G5 mate. You see that on the board, folks? G5 would be checkmate. So here you go. Now White would have to try his own tactics. Pin the G pawn. Don't let it come up. Well, now here comes the rook, ready to swing up here along the fifth rank and deliver the fatal blow. Right? So what do you do here, folks? Right? What do you do? Look, if you try to block like this to stop the rook from coming in, well, like Shredder finds, you attack the rook and you threaten mate. Queen takes H2 is mate also, folks. What does White do? He can't take care of both threats. Matter of fact, he can't even stop Queen takes H2 mate. The White King's in a mating net, if you haven't noticed. Nowhere to go. So look, he'd have to sack it. Look at this. Nowhere to go. Here, he's got to protect H2, right? I mean, forget about it. It's all over, right? It's all over. So now, you can't do that. I mean, here's Shredder's solution. Just give the rook away. I mean, really? What's going on here? What is this? Look, okay. He's going to try some kind of perpetual. All right, you got the block, luckily. You got the block. All right, so I guess you take with check. Here he comes. All right, you take over here with check. He takes. All right, there. You save your rook. You stop the pawn from queening. Game over, right? Oh, there he goes in for it. Give me my queen. All right, goodbye. One move. Hasta la vista. All right, so where are we now? So what else could he do? I think after this move, right, rook to c5, threatening rook to c4, they try this one. They try to pawn up. That was another idea Shredder found. Just to prolong the game, folks. He's busted. All right, so now, where do you go? You go there. I think this was a move, but let's see. You go to f3 instead of f4. Look, you're threatening. Let's see. Okay, look, this is what they're saying. I don't know. I'm just try this. Attack the rook, right? Attack the rook on d2. Okay, he swings there to protect g4 also. You end up getting the okay. You're piling up on g4. Okay, what does he do, folks? If you haven't noticed, if he trades, right? If he can't even move that pawn on g4. He can't take because it's pinned, right? So I don't know if he moves. This is his only move. I mean, think about this. Where does he go, folks? Let me look at this again for a second. After this, yeah, there you go. See, it likes that move. This move's better. And then you go here with he blocks, right? I mean, what else does he do? I don't know. If he just wastes a move to see the threats. I mean, you win the rook. You win the rook. Why do you win the rook here? Oh, he's dead. He's dead. He takes here. Total desperation. Forget about it. It's all over, right? All right. Do we have to go further, folks? All right, look. So, really, after this, if you push the pawn, you pin it, right? He protects it. You pile up on g4, right? I don't even know at this stage. What if he pushes over here, right? Now you take with check. Now you're just going to bring, look. He can't even, folks, the threat is rook to h5, mate. Because the black queen is keeping the king, the white king. you know, stuck on the H file. He can't get out. No escape. So this is the best white can do at this point. He's trying to stop this, right? He's got to sack the queen then. But I mean, come on, you go here. All right, goodbye. All right, there's nothing left. There's nothing left. There it is, checkmate. Yeah, maybe you get his queen first. How about that, right? Then you give checkmate, right? This is mate, right? Oh no, he's gonna have. Yeah, you go there, like all the other ones. No problem. There it is. All right, so I don't know what did he say to do? He wanted to move the king over here, right? All right, you take. Queen takes. Rook check again over here, and it's over, right? You get this guy. There you go. Oh, what's he gonna do? It's all over, folks. It's all over. I mean, what if he just pushes here, right? You got the mate, see? There you go. That pawn, the D pawn, it looks scary, you know, but black's got such an attack. That white king is in such a bad position. Notice the black king is tucked in, you know, on the side also, but there's no attack on him. The white king is under the gun. All hell is raining down on him. All right, so anyway, he can't come up to F4. If he comes up to F4, he's doomed also, right? After this, the queen check. The black king is tucked safely away. Black is the one who has all the initiative here, right? He has the attack. There's nothing that can be done. All right, so we looked at that. So here's what Owen does instead. On the queen check, he blocks with his rook. Okay, but now get a load of this. After that move, let's see, that was move 43, right? Just to make sure. Okay, 43. Here comes the rook. Let's see, he comes over here, attacking the D pawn, right? Stopping its movement and getting ready to swallow it up, right? Now, if you notice, white doesn't have many moves. Look, the pawn, I mean, the king can't, I mean, if he moves the king, he loses his rook, right? He can't come up here. He just hangs his rook. If he can't move the H pawn, the G pawn makes no sense. I mean, the A pawn is stuck. It's really the queen. Only the queen can move. So what does he do? He gives the check, right? When in doubt, give a check, I guess. I don't know. And here, Morphy offers him the queen exchange. All right, so now, I mean, you give it to Schroeder, he would take it. All right, and now, I guess now it's a pawn and rook and pawn end game, which are tough, folks. It's tough. But, I mean, black's going to win this guy over here. The D pawn's a dead, he's a dead duck. He's a goner, right? So, I don't know. I'd say black's got the edge, right? He's got the winning chances here. I mean, but you got to still fight it out. Rook and pawn end games, I don't know. You know, that's tough. But maybe that's what he should have done. But instead, Owen drags the queen back here. I guess he thinks if we trade queens on B2, the rook would take back, and now he's bearing down on the B7 pawn. So if Morphy wants to take there, well, he'll take there with check, right? And here we go once again. It's, I don't know, it's one of those pawns. This definitely looks like a rook. I mean, look at the evaluation drawn, right? So I don't know. Let's just go back. I forgot to look at the evaluation. If he trades here, right? What's the okay? A little edge to black, under a pawn. So again, might be a draw. I don't know. I'll leave that for the masters and grandmasters, right? You go like this. You know, do you even take? All right, you take here first, maybe. But there you go. It's tough. This might have been the way to go. Owen should have probably went into this. Instead, he brings the queen back, like I said. And hey, Morphy doesn't trade. He just goes right in. He takes the pawn. And now you got the queen coming down with check, taking the pawn, the B7 pawn with the queen. All right, it's check. But now again, the king tucks himself away, right? The white queen's on the light squares. And the the black king's on the dark square, so he's safe for now, right? No checks. No checks are coming in on the black king, and yet look at that white king. He's ready to be bombarded. Okay, so now queen here, right? Queen here. I mean, you're threatening, black's threatening mating too, right? Like this, check. Okay, if he moves up, there could be a mate. But okay, he's got the pawn, right? He's got the pawn. Could you just give this check here, right? And sure enough, he'd have to sack it because look, folks, you could give, heck, oh wow, look at that. I was going to say you could give the check here. You could just take it. The rook's pinned. The rook is pinned to your rook. He can't take your queen. But look, this is even better. You check here, only one square. Again, the rook can't block on G2. He's pinned by your rook. And there you go, mate with the pawn. Look at that. There's another pattern, right? I mean, when it's bad, folks. This white king is really in trouble. No breathing room. You don't want to end up like this. No breathing room, and the enemy pieces are swarming. So Owen puts his queen over here, right? And now get this. This is the final move of the game. Shredder found it. G5. Right? G5. And it's all over. It's all over, folks. Owen resigns. Why? Let's look at what could happen now. Okay, what's being threatened? Well, G4 mate is being threatened. So here's Shredder with this move to stop G. Well, you play it anyway. You win the queen, right? You win the queen. It's all over. There you go. Right? Do you need any more? There you go. Oh, look at this. You move here, and now he has no legal moves except to move the rook. Rook moves wherever the heck it wants, right? You throw the rook in here. He takes, and queen H5. There's another pattern, right? Beautiful stuff. All right. Okay, so that's why the queen, all right, so the queen's trying to stop it this way. If he moves the rook, I mean, if he moves the rook, what does it matter? Let's see, let's just you throw the rook over here, for instance, right? You give the check, okay? You can't come up here to queen, right? Only square. Give the check. Back rank, goodbye. Okay, he blocks with the queen, good night. There it is. And it's over, folks. It's all over. See that? A lot of beautiful patterns here. So, after that move, right, what else can you really do? I don't know. There's really nothing. Oh, what if you push? What if you push here, right? Here comes the check, right? Nowhere to go but to block with the rook. And guess what, folks? Pawn takes pawn. Beautiful mate. You see that one? Thanks to the G pawn also blocking, taking away the H4 square. So there you go. I mean, a lot of pretty stuff. The game wasn't, I admit, the game wasn't the best on either side, but at the end, you're picking up all these patterns, these mating patterns, folks. You apply them to your, to your games. They crop up now and then. You got to look for them. I mean, when you see these patterns, you could start to get your ideas, and you're looking at your own game as the cement truck drives by. Can you believe this? All right. Well, like I was saying, they crop up in your game, and that's how you're going to be able to destroy your opponents. They won't know what hit them. All right? You have so many weapons. Okay. So that concludes another episode. I hope you enjoyed it. All right? And when this continues, you got Morphy cleaning cleaning Owen's clock at this point. Let's see here. When did this start? We had game number 34, game number 35, 36, and now this was game 37, folks. 4 in a row. All right, let's see if Owen could get a game. I mean, I don't know, folks. It's tough. This guy Morphy's something else. Give him pawn and move. Okay. We'll have to stay tuned and see what happens next game. And Morphy's games of chess. All right. Have a good night.